You're listening to Outside the Locker Room with Mackenzie Pflum, a Hustled exclusive podcast.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Today we welcome the youngest general manager in Division I football. I don't know if you're over that title yet or not, but you've been coaching since your undergrad days at Ohio Northern. You played there a little bit too, played football at Ashland High School. That's how we know each other. Owen Chandler, thanks for joining me today on the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I'm definitely not over that label yet. Hear it all the time, so.
We have to kind of thank Aiden for volunteering you to come on. He's definitely a proud younger brother. He went into like the straight salesman pitch, like how you're, the youngest GM and how I need to get you on the podcast and everything. So shout out Aiden for that.
No, he's awesome, yeah.
So, what's up right now? Like you just got there. It's the off season, but I'm sure you're kind of getting things going for spring ball. What's right now look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in a little bit of everything. So working through planning our travel for the fall. So that's one of the aspects of my job is travel, team travel, coaches travel, all that. So getting our hotels squared away, buses, flights, charter flights. And it's all different here because we are a public university, so we have to work through separate companies. I can't just go call and do that myself. So that's been a whole adjustment. But aside from that, recruiting is huge right now. We're working on our class of 2026. We just finalized our class of 2025 February 5th with signing day, and we got a good class coming in, and we're really excited about those guys. But tomorrow is our first official junior day, so all those upcoming seniors that are kind of high on our radar, tomorrow will be the first time we'll get those guys on campus.
Nice, that's awesome. Well, you haven't really changed the colors much, so at least you don't have to adjust to the colors from Ashland. That's awesome. I kind of like to start in chronological order just so we can paint the picture a little bit better of, how you got to where you are right now. So you played football at Ashland High School, and then you went to Ohio Northern to play football. Heading into college, was coaching after college kind of the plan, or did that just end up falling into place?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it was the plan going into college, and that's why I chose the major I did. I chose business management because I knew it would be a little bit easier than maybe like an engineering or something at Ohio Northern. So a big influence on me, I would say, is Coach Tabler and Coach Valentine at Ashland High School. They kind of told me if you don't go into coaching, you're dead wrong. So they kind of pushed me towards that. So I would say, yeah, I did have that aspiration going into college.
Well, you went into college as a player, correct?
Yes.
And then your senior year, you kind of transitioned into, was it your junior or senior year that you transitioned into more of a coaching role?
Junior year.
Why that switch?
All right, so my playing career kind of got cut short due to an injury. I during the COVID season, which was the spring of 2021, which was kind of like the end of my sophomore year, I tore my PCL, and I was like, okay, I should be able to get back from this. But with such a quick turnaround from the spring season straight into the fall season, we really didn't have an off season per se. It was okay, we got our spring season, we're playing from March, and then we'll dip into April a little bit, and then we have summer lifting, and then we're straight into fall camp in August. So I really didn't have a full even 6 months to get healthy.
Okay.
So I had a meeting with our head coach, Coach Paul at Ohio Northern, right when I got there, right after I got my physical for fall camp, and learned that I was not ready to play yet. And I asked if I could kind of start transitioning into a coaching role because I knew that's what I wanted to do following my graduation. So, yeah.
So it sounds like it was almost like a little bit of a business decision. Was it hard going from playing to coaching, especially now that you're coaching guys that you used to play with, like play alongside? Was there any FOMO there for you?
Yeah, Yes and no. So I kind of got to learn a little bit off the field about what our coaches thought about the guys that I was playing with. So it was kind of weird. So it was like, okay, I know this, but at the same time, there was a little bit of FOMO. After I got into the coaching world, I kind of understood the game of football a little bit better, and I was like, dang, I wish I would have knew this when I was playing.
Right. I was going to say, so you mentioned Coach Tabler and Coach Valentine kind of pushing you in that direction of coaching, saying that you'd be good for that. Was there something that they specifically saw that they told you that they said, okay, you'd make a good coach because of this?
Yeah, so Coach Tabler sat me down in his office, and this was earlier in the season, my senior year, and he was like, hey, I don't know if you're going to play this position, but I want you to try playing this position. And I was like, okay. So I moved from the middle linebacker position to the outside linebacker position. And during practices, I would rotate from outside to middle to the other outside position without taking a break at all. And he said, you have a really good understanding of what we want out of our defense. And like, that's kind of where that came from, is just the understanding I had of the system. He's like, and then like I said earlier, he's like, you're dead wrong if you don't decide to go into coaching.
This might be, I don't want to say it's a dumb question because there's never any dumb questions, but like, how do you learn to be a coach? Like, how do you learn to have that, I guess, leadership and aura, or do you think that's just something that you just have naturally?
Well, there's definitely a learning curve, but it helps if you play the sport. You kind of learn how to lead as a player, which helps with how you lead as a coach. So the short answer is it definitely helps to play in terms of becoming a coach, but there's definitely some learning to do after the playing career ends.
You graduate, which the job hunting process is kind of intimidating. How old were you when you graduated? Because you're 23 now, right?
I was 21.
You're 21. So I can't imagine. I'm 22 probably when I graduated, but it's just an intimidating thing for a 21, 22-year-old. I mean, trying to figure out a job, did you know which direction you wanted to go with coaching, or were you just kind of applying to any football position that you could?
That's a great question. So yeah, I did know that I wanted to coach the defensive side of the ball based on what I played. But at the same time, there's only so many jobs available each cycle, and football season cycle. So coaching cycles work with, okay, there's a bunch of jobs that open after the season due to coaches moving up or coaches getting fired. So there's a cycle there. There's also a cycle after the spring practice season, which ends in May, where, again, coaches move on. Not a lot of the coaches in the spring, after spring ball, get fired. But so I was just kind of applying to everything I could at that point because I graduated in December from Ohio Northern. Okay. So it was easier for me because there were more jobs available, I guess.
So you, and forgive me if I say this wrong, you get a job at Valparaiso. Is that how you say it?
Valparaiso.
How do you say it? Valparaiso
Yep.
University, Division I university in Indiana, as the defensive quality controls coach.
Yep.
Tell me, what is a defensive qualities control coach?
So I am breaking down every single aspect of the film defensively, as well as uploading the film. I also got to coach a position. I helped with the cornerbacks.
Okay.
Once spring ball hit. But defensive quality control is just making sure everything's in line for the defensive coaches, and the head coach was a defensive coach too, so for him as well.
Did you know anybody there that you had that connection with that you were able to use as, I guess, a resource to get that job, or was it kind of just a shot in the dark?
A little bit of both. So
okay.
One of my college coaches, Cody Cruzen, had coached with the head coach at Valparaiso, Landon Fox, at Dayton University.
Okay.
So that was kind of my foot in the door. Again, funny story. My teammate from college also applied for the offensive quality control position.
Okay.
So we were both going into it together.
And he got the position?
we both got the position.
Wait, that's awesome. Were you guys roommates?
We were roommates.
Okay, that probably adjusted the move, I guess, out of college, made it probably a little bit easier for you.
Yeah.
This is kind of just my own personal curiosity. During an interview for a coaching position, what kind of questions are they asking you to make sure that you actually know what you're talking about? I feel like a normal interview, they're like, okay, tell me your strengths and weaknesses, but you kind of have to have like strategy to coach any sport. So how do they make sure that you actually know what the heck you're talking about?
Yeah, so a lot of it is whiteboard oriented. Get up on the whiteboard, talk me through a coverage defensively, or talk me through a play offensively. What am I looking at? Just stuff like that. Another thing is like teach this coverage to me as if I were an incoming freshman.
Is that intimidating?
A little bit, yeah.
I would for sure be a little intimidated.
Other than that, it's like, what's your coaching philosophy? Like, why do you coach? And stuff like that. So there is some sort of relation to other types of interviews, like in terms of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So that first job out of college, what do you think the biggest thing that you learned from that experience, maybe like on the field or off the field, could be either one?
I would say how to work hard. The head coach was very organized, very structured, and had his hand in a lot of things. And a big thing for me was trying to help him out with everything else. And he demanded from his staff that we worked hard. But at the same time, he's like, act normal.
Yeah.
But no, he's a very good influence on just kind of teaching me how to be a coach. So that was good.
Okay, so then after that first year, you decide to come back to Ashland, get a job as a defensive assistant coach. What went into that decision to come back to Ashland?
So a lot of that, the influence to go back to Ashland actually came from the current head coach I'm working for.
Oh, okay.
He said he played at Ashland.
Okay.
So he was like, hey, I think you should try to attach yourself with a successful program where there's a good history of coaches developing through that program and moving on to higher levels. For example, Matt LaFleur, Green Bay Packers head coach,
Right.
was the OC at Ashland for a year, moved up. I think he went to Wisconsin after that, and then kind of worked his way up to an NFL head coaching job. So he had a big influence on that. He advised me to go there, and then he also reached out to the guys on staff for me.
Okay, I know that he kind of leads the offense, but what is it like to coach alongside Garrett Turnbull? Do they still call him Turbo?
Yeah, he's Coach Turbo. He's Coach Turbo.
Coach
everyone.
Turbo
Awesome.
is insane.
That guy is electric. He's definitely one of the coolest guys I've ever worked with.
I was going to say, because I went to school with him, and he was a player at that point in time, so I saw him at like a different light. I can't even imagine like what he's like as a coach. Which, speaking of, you guys are both young. You're 23. Coaching other 23-year-olds, I'm sure there's some guys who are even older than you. Is it kind of weird telling guys your age what to do, or like, I don't want to say bossing them around because it's not necessarily that, but I mean, what's that like?
Yeah, so being on the field, you don't even think about that.
Okay.
It's more in the offices, like when you're meeting with a player and talking about academics, you're like, well, shoot, I was just going through this. Like,
Right.
this kid's older than me. Like, you would think you would have some of these things figured out, but everybody's different. But no, as a student coach, definitely it was weird. It was a weird adjustment, but I think having that experience helped me out. It's even in my first job at Valparaiso when I was 21, and some of the guys I was coaching were 23, 24 years old.
Do you almost have to, I don't want to say earn respect from them, but because you are younger, do you have to kind of show them, what you can do, what you know, how you can lead before they give you that respect? Have you noticed any of that?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of that comes from communication. So if I'm trying to do a drill with my position, so I was the corners coach of Valparaiso. If I'm trying to do a footwork drill or whatever, it's being confident in your communication. And once they hear that confidence, they're like, okay, yeah, I can follow this guy. He knows what he's talking about.
Okay. I'm biased, but I just think Ashland University football is such a great program with great facilities. They've got great coaches at a great university. Was there anything that impressed you through that experience that maybe you weren't expecting?
Yeah, so having having an indoor football field is insane.
Yeah.
And the fact that all of their facilities are in one place just makes it so much better. You have the weight room, you have the coaches' offices, you have your meeting rooms, you have the gridiron room, which is a separate meeting room in its own for us coaches when we're, and then you have the VIP room where we have our staff meetings, and then you got the field, you got the locker room, you got the equipment room. You walk across the field, it's the indoor facility. It's just like having all that in one place was so awesome and super surreal, and you don't realize how great it is unless you've been somewhere where it's not like that. Say where I played at Ohio Northern, we had our weight room, we had our locker room, our coaches' offices were where they were on the other side of campus, and then Valparaiso facilities there weren't the greatest, but everything was kind of in the same spot. So.
And then as far as, I guess, what you learned on the field from Coach Geyser, the other guys, why am I blank? Coach Rose, guys like that, I mean, who have been there for so long and do such a great job and have proven, they know what they are talking about. They can lead this successful program. What did they kind of pour into you?
Yeah, so throughout my time there, the year I was there, I tried to learn as much as I could from Coach Rose. Because you look at that guy, the experience he has, being an FBS head coach at one point, knocking off number 6 LSU at LSU. Like, you want to learn as much as you can from that guy. And getting to work with him directly as the assistant linebackers coach, I got to see how he communicated with his players. And then we had our defensive staff meetings. I got to see how he led, and that was just a great experience. And then with Coach Geyser, I mean, he's one of the best head coaches I've ever worked for. He's super understanding of, like, hey, like, you guys are my coaches. I hired you. Do what you need to do. I'll tell you what I need from you. But, like, he just let us work, and even in recruiting, he's like, okay, we need this position. We have this many scholarships. Like, do what you guys need to do. Get whatever guys you need to get here, and we'll go from there. So, I mean, I learned so much from those guys, and it was just kind of studying, like, how do these guys do things, and what can I do to make myself a better coach in the future?
You said that you had done an interview in college with Todd Stepsis, the head coach now at University of Northern Iowa. You guys kind of stayed connected. You had this connection through your dad from the play-by-play days and stuff like that. Kind of take me through the rundown of how everything played out with you ending up at University of Northern Iowa.
Yeah, so, like, I have a connection with Coach that goes back to even before I was born. So him and my dad attended Ashland University together.
Okay.
My dad was the play-by-play guy for the football team. Todd was a player.
Okay.
After that, when I was a kid, when I was a baby growing up, my dad and Todd would play in golf outings together, the football alumni golf outing
Heck yeah.
for Ashland. And they actually they brought home the trophy a couple times. So
Okay, shout out them.
yeah, exactly. And then from there, I reconnected with Coach. Like you said, my sophomore year of college, I interviewed him for one of my papers for my career planning class because I knew I wanted to coach football. It was an assignment that required us to interview 3 professionals or get articles from 3 different sources about the career you wanted to get into. So connecting with him and talking to him for the first time, I was like, okay, maybe I want to go into college coaching. And he was a pretty big influence on that as well. And just staying connected with him throughout. He, like I said, he got me to Ashland. He was a big influence on that. And then January 1st, Georgia and Notre Dame were playing in the college football playoff. his name pops up on my phone, and I was like, okay, maybe he's just telling me Happy New Year.
Right.
And little do I know, 5 minutes later, he's like, hey, I got this position off the field. It's not coaching. I know you want to coach. I know you're in a coaching position right now. It's not coaching. It's more organizational. He explained the position to me. He said, I've got a guy that I have the job offered to right now. I'm not sure if he's going to take it. If he doesn't take it, I want you to have it. Just let me know if you're interested. So from there, I was actually going through the interview process with a different college, Division III school out here in Iowa, ironically.
Wow. Iowa's
Where
calling.
my buddy, yeah, exactly. So where my buddy's actually, he's the receivers coach that I worked with at Valpo and played with in college. So it was like, okay, I have a connection there. I was going through that interview process at the same time, and I actually had texted Coach Stepsis. It's like, hey, you got any advice for me on this interview? And this was before he had called me about this job, and he was like, just be yourself. You don't need a presentation. Like, be yourself, and if they hire you for you, then it's the right spot. A couple weeks later, didn't get that job, and I had already heard from Coach. I was like, okay, then maybe you and I is what's going to happen. And I hadn't heard back from Coach Stepsis. He was like, just hang tight, man. Like, I got nothing for you yet. Should hear back about the other guy here soon. So I go to the AFCA Coaches Convention with the Ashland University staff, not knowing anything, just trying to meet as many people as I could. Not necessarily marketing myself, because I didn't, I wasn't like, okay, if I don't get a job at UNI, I can spend another year at Ashland before I look. Ashland's a good program, great program, one of the best D2 programs, and we had just had one of the best seasons in Ashland history. So why would you leave that? So from there, I get back from the convention. It's Tuesday night. I get a text from Coach. Hey, the other guy didn't take the job. Sends me the application. He's like, here, fill this out, and here we are. So.
Well, I was gonna say, he mentioned it. It's not a on-field coaching position. It's
Right.
on the backside of things, recruiting, stuff like that. Was there any hesitation to taking it? Was it an immediate yes as soon as he kind of presented it to you? What were the thought processes that were going through your head when this came up?
Yeah, so I thought about it a lot, and one of the coaches I had worked with at Valparaiso, Brian Parker, he was the receivers coach there. He'd actually pitched the idea to me way back then. He was like, hey, if you're thinking about like moving up in the world, maybe look at operations. He said, you're super organized. You seem like you got a good head on your shoulders. Like, maybe think about operations if any of those jobs open up. So I had been thinking about it since that moment. If any opportunity were to present itself and it made sense for me, I would take it. And so there wasn't a lot of hesitation when Coach called me, and I had had a couple weeks to think about it before that. And as soon as he asked me, I was like, yeah, let's go. He said, when can you get out to Iowa? So.
A GM position on a Division I college football team, kind of take me through the rundown of what that looks like.
So it's a little bit, I guess the best way to describe it is you're the director of football operations as well as the director of player personnel. So in terms of everything football operations, so that's team travel, team meals after games, coaches travel, rental cars, team buses, reserving classrooms for meetings, reserving the field for practice, turning on the lights for practice, everything like that, in terms of operations. And then also I'm kind of director of player personnel. I'm basically the recruiting coordinator as well. So any recruiting event we have, I'm organizing that. I'm also in charge of our roster in terms of roster management, making sure we're using all of our scholarships, how we're using our scholarships, what position needs a guy, what position needs a scholarship guy, what position needs a walk-on, and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of everything, to say the least, but yeah.
I said it earlier, the youngest general manager in Division I college football. You said that, you're not tired of hearing that title. Is it almost shocking or unreal to believe that you're kind of in this position with this program at the age that you are? Like, do you ever just sit back and think about it?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't really had a lot of time to
You're like, I'm
reflect
so
on that.
busy.
Getting here February. I moved in February 2nd, so
Yeah,
I've been here a little over a month,
a
but
month.
it feels like a day. It feels like I haven't been here that long. So I haven't really had the full chance to reflect on like. But yeah, I mean, this is awesome. Like God's given me a great opportunity, and whatever I can do to advance my career and do what He's provided me with is be awesome. So it's been great. It's been great, but I haven't had a lot of time to reflect on it.
I feel like it'll probably hit later. I feel like normally it does. You kind of sit back and think about it later on, and you're like, holy crap, I can't believe I did that. Coach Stepsis had a really successful first year last season, took over the program. I want to say you went 15-1 in the conference. How do you plan on helping making this team more successful?
Yeah, so coach came over from Drake, and they won their first conference championship in 2023, which is funny because I actually coached against them. They were in our conference. Won his first conference championship, the first ever at Drake for the football team. So that's an awesome feat in itself. And then repeating in 2024, crazy. So now we're trying to build something great here, you and I, and what we're really working on right now, and what he's kind of taking the lead on is instilling a different culture than what these guys have experienced before. So even with our morning workouts, it's making sure our guys are doing the right things the way that we want them to do that, because it's a little different for these guys. We didn't necessarily. I was just saying this to one of our coaches. We didn't recruit all these guys, so we don't have those prior relationships with them. So a lot of what we're doing right now is building that relationship and showing them that they can trust us, and we're going to lead them in the right direction. So what we're working on right now, and what a big thing is leadership, instilling that culture, and seeing how our guys respond to different events and adversity.
So you're only continuing to grow in your career. I mean, what is the pipe dream in football for you?
So ever since I kind of wanted to get into coaching, my dream has been to get to the NFL. So I would say get to the NFL. I don't know what that looks like, but just if I could get my foot in the door somewhere, I feel like with the way I work, how hardworking I am, I would be able to work my way up in an organization.
So now that you're kind of in this operations role, you've done the on-field coaching, you've done the operations role, you're just getting started, I should say, but do you feel like, I don't want to say you have a preference, but do you feel like maybe you are leaning one way or another, like if you were, for the future, I should say?
I'll know a little bit more after the season,
Okay.
after I experience one full year, but I mean, just based on right now, I think that what I'm doing right now, general manager, I think that's probably the career path for me.
Okay. And then, who knows how long you'll be with the university, but I mean, how do you plan on learning and growing through this opportunity?
I mean, this first year is going to be a huge learning curve in terms of, like I said earlier, figuring out how things work here with the university. Being a public university, this is the first state school I've ever worked at. So just trying to learn how everything is done organizationally. But from there, like once I get to year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, however long I'm here, I hope it's a long time, and I hope we turn this thing around. From there, it's just going to be improving efficiency. Like, how can I do what I did last year or at this moment? How can I do that better next year? So a big thing for me, I would say, is efficiency.
Efficiency. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, taking the time out of your day to do this interview. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing you in the NFL, and we're going to have to run this interview back and kind of look back at all the questions that you answered and kind of compare them to where you're at in the future.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I really appreciate you having me on and taking the time to interview me. This has been awesome.
All right, perfect. Well, good luck this upcoming season, and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you very much.